a 43.
Yeah. And that's because you work with a lot of really good people. The average score in China and Russia and India and places where some of the risks that you're trying to oversee, where people actually really suffer. And you look at the good intent that your board have, they really want eco-advisors to help the world improve. In those places, the average 43 is Now we've got some markets where the average is really nothing like 43.
Yes, it's true. And seeing that, knowing that where they stand compared to their market is super important. I agree with that. Moving back toward the risk side of things, not so much performance assessment, but looking at risk profiling. I think we've actually covered this one pretty thoroughly in terms of gaps and bottlenecks in your current process, because you came prepared with them right off the bat, so I appreciate that. So unless you have any more, I'd like to move forward to what you'd like to see in an ideal risk management tool. So the biggest question for us right now is actually this last one, which we sort of touched on earlier. When you're thinking about managing risk in your entire supply chain and getting an overview and things like that, would you be looking for a tool that covers specifically CSR risk, so that the 4 categories that EcoVadis covers, or would other types of risk, like financial risk, things like that, be also important to include?
So if we could go to a place and we could get the Dun & Bradstreet score or equivalent, because it's not necessarily used everywhere, as well as the sanctions and export stuff, because you already check watch lists and things and sanctions lists anyway, but we don't necessarily always use it for that, as well as some basic background check stuff that will tell us whether we should start being concerned, and all aligned to country and commodity areas, then that would start to look like something that I could see multiple teams in GSK all wanting to use the same information. Currently, we may be paying multiple providers for quite similar information. So badging things that you already do. You do look at sanctions and watch lists, but it's not really easy to get that information. But you've got it there. So I think there are things that you have that you don't necessarily really utilize in terms of looking at what risks you're covering. I also think there are specific risks that you probably should never try and cover.
Like what?
Like really nuanced ones, like the elements of pharmaceutical or biological R&D, where it will be really niche. You're never going to, unless you really, really focus and invest, I think you could end up losing credibility because you wouldn't necessarily know enough to do a really good job, because it is in only a small area of global. I think if EcoVadis focused on massive scale across ubiquitous risks, you would end up with something that had enough of a critical mass to change the way that enough companies were to become a de facto standard. I think if you started specializing in individual risks that aren't the ones that every company would have, you could end up doing what Achilles or whatever did. You know, we'll just be an oil company and then we'll just fall to the floor and Gartner will never look at us again. So I think there's a level at which EcoVadis has done a really good job at being ubiquitous. But I still challenge that, although you're celebrating 30,000, where's the million? Exactly. Yeah. And that's the challenge for us, is that we still need to use lots of other data sources to find the million.
I mean, if you look at Bureau van Dijk, they claim to have the biggest set of corporate business companies, basically companies in their database, which is 180 million.
Yeah.
And that's slightly behind them. Yeah. But again, it's not the whole story.
Mm.
And you've got markets, you've got jurisdictions where you don't get company data. You can't.
No.
But these are the, it's easy when they all come and, show me what I can have if I subscribe to them. They always pull up Gazprom or Microsoft. I don't need to pay them these £1,000 year to get the profile of Microsoft. You can go and download the annual report. It's a small company in Angola, in Nigeria, that I can't find information on. That's what I'm interested in, but I can't leave it to me. So you need to look at that kind of angle and
where are the gaps?
Where are the gaps? Where you can add value, where these companies are more able to provide that information.
That's a really good point. When you're thinking of how to, okay, backing up, if we had this tool where you can do basic risk profiling information on a large group of suppliers, do you have your database of suppliers in one place? It sounds like there's a lot of fractured content. Like, I'm wondering how difficult would it be for you to provide either a database that we can plug into or a giant file, or how would that work?
You're struggling with the question. It's terribly difficult. So we have, like many companies, we have an ERP, a strategic ERP system that doesn't cover all countries.
Yep.
We then have other systems that cover some of the other countries. And then because something like TPO has to be global, we then have our TPO data set that may have some ERP data and some other data, but manually entered, because actually, for example, the finance database, ERP database, will have who we pay. That's not necessarily the same as the contracting database, which is who we engage with, which is not necessarily the same as the e-sourcing database, which is who we're negotiating with. And so you have all these different names and addresses, and then people might put them in a different script, or they might misspell them, or they might put a full stop, or put LTD or limited. And there is no, as you know, global identifier for you are a company.
Yep.
So we have given up several times on aligning all our data. And we'll probably always continue to do so. There'd have to be a certain amount of AI.
A certain amount of what? Sorry?
Of artificial intelligence, of machine learning to try and match all this stuff together. And even then, there are probably a load which are exact matches or very near matches, and using local colloquialisms, you'd understand that they were the same thing. But there are probably you look in India with the amount of companies with the name Lotus in there somewhere, you're always going to get problems and mismatches. They may be on the same road, they may be selling a similar kind of thing, and so it becomes more problematic. And there are also multiple companies who have maybe the same company in the same street, but different units in that street, and they are actually different companies delivering us different things.
Yeah.
Under different legal entities, and that little bit at the beginning is really important. Some will run well, some will run less well. So we don't have one set of data we could give you. We could give you something you could throw into a bowl of soup and try and make something work.
Yeah, we understand that data cleaning is something that customers need from us.
And I'm not sure that, yeah, absolutely, I think it is, but I think it's not, what it isn't is a one-off thing. We need to keep pouring in our ladles of soup and getting out something that's much nicer. Because we haven't cracked it at our end.
Okay, that's a good point. What do you think do you think a combination of allowing for giant uploads and then allowing you to adjust or add more companies on a one-off basis would be helpful, or how can we make this easiest for you?
I think it would always be bulk, in that we're still doing hundreds a week.
Okay.
So there'd never be a kind of type it in thing, I don't think. Unless we got to the point that it interfaced really easily with our actual business owners who could say, right, on a scale of 1 to 100, should I even start thinking about this organisation? Now, if we trusted the data enough and we could map it through something like Fiori or whatever, a nice skimming tool that gives people an online experience that they can use even if they don't understand the underlying data set, then that would be lovely. But that probably is a bit way off. I'm not sure we would trust anything that much. We would still want a level of our either my surgical expertise, which is not particularly expert but does a level of rigor around rules, or people like Vlad and others who have expertise in the nature of their role to look at things. Because in our experience, the data sets aren't always the only thing we would consider.